The ice pulls back, and we follow. They can't.
Imagine walking into a space that feels frozen in time. A Neanderthal shelter lies abandoned. Ash from long-cooled fires gathers in crumbling hearths. Half-finished tools scatter the ground, and bones, carefully arranged for carving, tell of meals that were never completed. For early Homo sapiens who might have stumbled upon such places, the silence must have been haunting. These weren't just empty shelters, they were warnings, signs that something was unraveling in the shared world of those two species. At first glance, it might have seemed like nothing more than chance. Cold seasons lasted longer, prey became harder to find, and sickness spread more often. But over time, a pattern emerged. The Neanderthals were vanishing, and the reasons why remain one of the greatest puzzles of prehistory. Their decline wasn't sudden. It was slow, like the dimming of a flame. Archaeological findings give us glimpses into their final years, and the story they tell is one of growing isolation.
The land calls to us. Their time here fades.
By the time the last Neanderthals roamed Europe, their world had shrunk considerably. Entire populations were gone, leaving only scattered groups clinging to the edges of their former ranges. Fossils and DNA from some of these final Neanderthal communities, like those found in Gorham's Cave in Gibraltar, suggest they were isolated physically and genetically. Their gene pool was shrinking, leading to inbred populations struggling to survive. While Homo sapiens were spreading out, testing new environments and connecting through trade over long distances, Neanderthals were breaking apart, becoming trapped in smaller and smaller territories. Without new blood entering their groups, survival became an increasingly uphill battle. You might think, why didn't they leave those shrinking pockets of land? The answer lies in how differently Neanderthals and Homo sapiens responded to challenges. Neanderthals relied on routines that had worked for hundreds of thousands of years. Their tools, though effective, changed little over time. Their hunting methods, ambush tactics with heavy spears, stayed the same, even as landscapes shifted and prey migrated elsewhere. Now contrast this with Homo sapiens, who seemed to thrive on pushing limits. When game grew scarce, they adapted, using new tools or exploiting new food sources. This difference might have meant everything in a world growing harsher with each passing year. Then there were the sudden environmental shifts. Periods of intense cold and warming came and went, likely forcing both species to adapt quickly or face starvation. Homo sapiens weathered the storms of the Ice Age with an advantage: flexibility. They relied on diverse diets, combining hunting with gathering and fishing, something Neanderthals seemed to do less frequently. Archaeological sites even show evidence of Homo sapiens storing food, a practice that suggests long-term planning. Neanderthals, meanwhile, seem trapped in a cycle of immediate survival, living day by day, season by season. There's another layer to this story, though, one that takes us beyond tools or hunting strategies. Disease may have played its part in the slow disappearance of the Neanderthals. As Homo sapiens and Neanderthals interacted, however briefly, illnesses could have crossed between the species. Modern humans today carry markers in their DNA that suggest our ancestors survived bouts of ancient plagues. Neanderthals, however, with their smaller and more isolated groups, would have been less resilient to the spread of infectious diseases. A single outbreak could devastate an entire band. And still, this wasn't just a one-sided struggle. Evidence of interbreeding, found in the genes of nearly all living humans outside Africa, proves that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens didn't always compete. In some cases, they mingled and may have even shared resources. But such exchanges only happened sporadically, and by the time the last Neanderthals were alive, those encounters had become rare. Most of their genes today remain as fragments, like echoes of a species fading into the background. Homo sapiens must have noted their absence, whether with fear, relief, or perhaps some sense of unease. Imagine stumbling upon a recently abandoned Neanderthal camp. The stillness, the unlit hearths, and the scattered belongings would have carried a weight beyond curiosity. For those young Homo sapiens venturing into new lands, they weren't just inheriting empty spaces, they were stepping into the void left by another intelligent, resourceful people. The Neanderthals once dominated these very territories. To see their absence unfold would have been a stark reminder of how precarious life could be. One excavation in southern Europe unearthed tools discarded in a hurry as if the makers had fled. In another, collections of butchered animal bones suggest a last desperate attempt to scrape by, with less prized pieces of meat used more frequently. Whether the Neanderthals slowly moved on or succumbed to hunger is unclear, but such findings hint at a population gradually losing its grip. At certain sites, layers representing human occupation tell a sequence. Neanderthals lived there first, only for Homo sapiens to take their place. It's a sobering thought. These two species might have lived parallel lives, aware but distant, neither realizing one was nearing its final chapter. In some ways, Homo sapiens learned from the Neanderthals' absence. Abandoned tools, shelters, and even remnants of their art, like the red ochre handprints Neanderthals left in European caves, may have sparked reflection in the minds of our ancestors. What separated survival from extinction? Was it simply better tools or clever strategies? Or was it luck? For those early humans, witnessing the disappearance of their closest relatives may have brought a deeper awareness of the fragility of survival, perhaps an unshakable realization about how vital adaptability really was. The turning point came somewhere between 42,000 and 37,000 years ago. Neanderthals, once widespread across Europe and Asia, dwindled until only a few remote populations remained. By then, Homo sapiens had all but replaced them. The species that had survived harsh winters and hunted alongside mammoths for generations longer than anyone thought imaginable was gone. But the lessons they left behind lingered, shaping how Homo sapiens continued to evolve. As the last remnants of the Neanderthals faded into memory, their absence marked not just an end but a beginning. It was a stark turning point, one that must have forced their successors to confront the weight of survival. Because for all the advantages Homo sapiens had, they were now alone in a world they were only beginning to master. And as they stood in those abandoned caves, surrounded by what was left of the others, a question must have formed, unspoken but clear. What did their extinction mean for those who were left behind? For Homo sapiens, survival wasn't just about overcoming the moment, it was about understanding their place in the story of life. If the Neanderthals could vanish, what guarantee was there that they wouldn't one day follow?